Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Doug.Show. It's Doug Cunnington here, and today is a listener question and answer session. So I opened up the mailbag, voicemail bag, my email bag, and we're gonna go through a few questions today. So one of them is a voicemail, and it is around like hiring people and how much you should pay for content and hiring non-native English speakers, even though they may have like an English degree and so on. So I'll get my thoughts on that. A little bit about the Google Sandbox as well, backlinks and that sort of thing. We're also going to look at the like mix of content. So Denise sent in an email about like publishing informational posts, review articles, and that sort of thing. And then she also asks about putting ads or other sort of content or monetization on informational posts. You may hear Georgie ruffling her collar and jingling her tags there. So thanks, Georgie, for that. Making an appearance very earlier in the podcast here. And then the other question is around the Amazon Associate Disclosure Statement. And probably a lot of people have seen chatter on this already. By the time this episode goes live, I probably will have updated a few things on Niche Site Project around this. But Amazon, somewhere in the mid-October timeframe, sent out an email to ensure that the disclosure was very clearly stated, and they sort of emphasize a few FTC guidelines as Federal Trade Commission, easy for me to say, the Federal Trade Commission and that sort of thing. So they just want to make sure, in essence, like you are disclosing things properly. So I'll talk about that a little bit too. Now, before we get into the Q&A, it's awesome to get the voicemails, but a little tip, and I talked about this a couple weeks ago, maybe very recently. Basically, if you leave the voicemail, it's fantastic. At this point, 100% of anyone who leaves a voicemail, you're making it on the show. So it's a pretty cool way to sort of hack the system and get me to listen to you. Now, quick tip, we need them to be about 90 seconds long or less. 1 minute is kind of the sweet spot. 90 seconds is pretty good too. The voicemail service that I'm using is Google Voice, pretty straightforward. So Google Voice is cool, but they have a 3-minute time limit for the voicemails. Also, you should be able to ask your question in 3 minutes. So if there are other pieces of information that you think maybe are very important to set the context so that I can answer it in an effective way, you can send an email, couple bullet points, let me know what's going on. But you should be able to, make your statement, ask the question, and then, hop off. The other part is I can appreciate the folks that are listening to this. I expect you want to hear me talk, but you maybe don't need to go off on too many side tangents. So I respect that, and I'm trying to keep it tight. I'm learning as I go. I know there are other ways to get voicemails or get interaction with the audience, and I'm testing things. I'm a big believer of testing and being frankly a little sloppy and just sort it out later. So usually I'm like executing, and then I'm like, oh, that was a little bit of a mistake there. I should have done that differently. The whole point here is write out what you're going to say. But by the way, this is good advice. Like, for example, if you're doing a job interview, I used to be really terrible at job interviews. I think I'm better now, but it was a matter of like going through like possible questions and making sure I could answer in a concise way. I mean, think about a job interview. If someone asks you a fairly straightforward question, like you need to have an answer that you can give in like 45 seconds or a minute or so. Yes, there are questions where they're asking you to talk for a much longer time, maybe describing an old project that you worked on that was fairly complex. It may take longer, but you need to be able to tell a story in like short bursts. So if they ask a question, you need to be able to answer it quick. So anyway, I'll get off my, it sounds like I'm ranting or complaining. I love the voicemails. Please send them in. The voicemail number is in the show notes, so you could just check that out. If you're on your phone, you can just like click on it, call in, after you write it down and edit it down, make sure it's about 1 minute. You can time yourself, right? You can make sure that you're in that 1 minute plus or minus 30 seconds. So let's hear the voicemail now. And I did actually exchange some emails with this person as well. And, they're out of Pakistan. They were like, hey, it's really cool that you're able to like impact my life. Even though we're across the world, we speak different languages and all that stuff. So really, really appreciate that. Let's hear this voicemail now.
Hi, this is Ahrefs from Pakistan. I use your techniques, different techniques, and it really works. I have been building sites in other niches, but this is my first Amazon affiliate site. Like I built this about 9 months ago, and it is making about $100 a month. Not much, but I am putting a lot of work and effort to make it work. It is about 106 articles, and I built about 25 guest post links. So I know this is a seasonal niche, so I'm expecting a huge bump in the next summer, hopefully. So my question is that I am using local content writers like from Pakistan. They're not native writers, but I hire them and I train them. And I pay about $15 to $20 for 3,000 articles. So I think that's cheap. Like, don't get me wrong, they're not table writers. Like, they have master's degree in English, and they personally like put a lot of work in single article. Like they work about 10 hours on a single article, and I personally give them feedback along the way and make sure that the content is up to the mark. So what do you think? Like, if you compare this with other people in other countries, like they are paying like 2 to 3 cents for not the same, but like 2 to 3 cents for an article. So what do you think? Like, this is my plus point, or I should hire native English speakers? So what do you think about this? Like, I can launch a 100 article site about $3,000, and like someone in the US or Canada or other countries might have to pay like $10,000 or even more.
Okay, interesting question here. Here's the breakdown, the summary. So the site's making about $100 a month. There's about 100 posts out there, and it seems to be seasonal, making about like I said, $100 a month. So I think the revenue is a little bit like low for the age of the site and the amount of content and all that. However, the kicker is, I think Owish, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name exactly, but you are potentially publishing content that is like written poorly. I have no idea. I mean, writers can be good even if they're writing in a second language, and I've seen that, but usually it's hit and miss. So your question is, should you keep paying a low rate, or should you like hire English speakers, native English speakers, to write the content for you? Well, I can't answer that based on your budget specifically, but I would say if you want to keep doing that, you probably need to get a very good native English speaking editor to edit the content. I've seen this probably 100 times where someone thinks their content is really good, but it's really very, very bad. They think it's good. They don't speak English natively, and they can't recognize the like small little details that make it either hard to read, poor grammar, or untrustworthy. Because basically, I mean, I've seen these as I'm looking at sites. And again, some people are like, the content's excellent. I know it's excellent, blah, blah, blah. And when I look at that content, it's terrible. So if you get an editor, they should be able to let you know whether or not it's good or not. And I would suggest that you pay a decent rate. So you're saying you're paying like I can't even remember. You're paying like $10 for 3,000 words, or maybe something even less than that. That is a very low wage for for usually what I'm working with, but you're, dealing with things in a different way. So if the math works out, if you're happy with the results that you're getting, keep doing that. But I think you're paying too low of a price for the content. And I think you're probably doing not as good. I don't know, because I'm not looking at the site or anything. I don't know the site, but basically, if you're paying that cheap and like you think the content's really good, but maybe it's not, you should probably have an expert, a native English speaker, check it out. It's probably not as good as you think based on the 100 examples that I've seen in the past. So that is number one. The secondary question, which I'm just going to summarize here again. We ended up with a very long voicemail, and it's kind of an interesting thought experiment, although potentially not a very valuable question or answer, at least in my opinion. But I'm just one person here. But you asked me, and so you want to know my opinion. The question is generally around can you catch up with a very big existing site that maybe has say 500 or 1,000 pieces of content and tens of thousands of backlinks, for example. I'm exaggerating the question a little bit here to make the point. And the question is, can a new site catch up with an old site, especially when the new site is actively doing a lot of work and the old site is inactive and they're not improving things? So the short answer is yes, anything's possible. You lay out a specific scenario in the voicemail that I cut out here. You lay out a specific scenario where you're like, hey, if I publish, 2,000 articles in the first year and then start building backlinks and I overtake the number of backlinks that the original big site that has been around for 10 years, can I catch up to it? The answer is yes, it's possible. I mean, you can find examples of this all over the place. If you look through the SERPs or you find a new website that has popped up out of nowhere, maybe it's only a couple years old, but obviously it's someone who knows what they're doing. So the answer is yes, that is totally possible. The downside is if you're asking the question, you probably do not yet possess the skills to do that yet. However, that doesn't mean it can't be done. And it will take a lot of money. You probably got to hire some badass writers, no bullshit as far as hiring cheap writers like you have been doing. That's not going to work. Guarantee it. You can't do that. It's not going to work. And if anyone has examples otherwise, please send them in. But I'm pretty sure if you're hiring writers for 1/3 of the cost, it's probably not going to be able to compete with people that are really into the content. They're very good writers. They're native English speakers or whatever language, right, is relevant for you. So anyway, yes, interesting thought experiment. New sites can overtake older sites. The Google sandbox can be sort of skipped. In fact, I've been coaching an individual for a few years, and he contacted me off and on, right? But he contacted me over the summer. We're sort of catching up, and thank goodness, right? He's been able to pretty close to double his revenue over 3 months or so. And the first couple months it was a little slow, but it sort of popped here in the last month or so, which is pretty epic. Obviously makes me feel good that he's going out, number one, executing, and then he's getting results pretty clearly. So, but I can't even remember the point I was going to make, but I've been coaching this guy. Oh, I know, the sandbox. So I've been coaching this guy, and he's been, crushing it on his existing site, doing some pretty key things, some very special sort of on-site and technical SEO things that we've been working on. But the cool thing, most of us, he's I found this pretty cool niche. I'm a little interested. He's published something 80 KGR type articles out there. And I'm pretty sure he skipped the sandbox. The site is only a few months old. It is less than 6 months old. He's now getting 1,000 unique visitors a day. So pretty epic. And it's you can start a new site and get traffic if you're doing the right things. it's not this guy's first rodeo. He's done, probably a dozen other sites, and he's making essentially a full-time living. Although he still has his day job, but he's making a full-time living from his niche site, thanks to, the extra coaching from me and all his hard work. I mean, this dude has done a ton of work, and he digs into the details, and we go really deep in our coaching sessions. So by the way, I hardly ever plug my coaching stuff that I do. I don't work with a ton of people because it takes a lot of time. But if you are interested in like one-on-one coaching with me, it is, I would say, extremely valuable. And judging from, the people that I have worked with, it's pretty epic. In fact, I have one of the questions was sent in by someone I've coached. So I will go over that as well. But if you go to nichesiteproject.com/hire-me, then you can get some of the information there. But the cool part, because like I'm fairly available on YouTube live streams. You can send in a voicemail like we've talked about, and you can kind of get my opinion, my high level opinion on certain things. But what you can't get is me to audit your site in a public forum, right? That it just doesn't work out. I can't go in depth. It's not very safe for you to just expose your site as far as like avoiding copycats or negative SEO or that sort of thing. So anyway, if you want some one-on-one coaching, if you want to ask me questions, I also do a little bit of work as far as like auditing or reviewing sites that people may want to purchase, right? So if you are looking at a site and you need some due diligence done, there are services that do a very stringent look. And actually, I don't know the names of them, but you can find them out there if you want me to look at it too, right? If you're buying something that's like $50,000 or $250,000 or $500,000, you may want to have a couple sets of eyes look at it to make sure you're not missing anything. It's kind of like when you're buying a house, you have like a title lawyer like look at things, and they go and make sure there's no liens on the house. And they analyze things to make sure there's not going to be like future issues. It's like that. So anyway, check out the hire me page over at Niche Site Project, and you can get a little more info on that. So thanks again for sending in that voicemail. And let's move on to the next question. So Denise asked this. I enjoy the podcast. Thank you. I got valuable, actionable items to improve my site and hopefully my income. I hope so too. And the question is this. What about maintaining a 50-50 mix between informational posts and review affiliate product type posts? If I write an info post and there's a group of connected articles, I'm going to have a lot more review posts if I keep doing that. So basically, I do recommend you keep at least that 50-50 blend of informational to review and product post. Further, I encourage people to maybe even publish a little more informational content on the early side of like their site. So I guess when your site's young, you could publish a little more informational content. Now, the interesting thing is, it seems like from my observations that a lot of times an informational post probably has a little less competition, and it may rank a little bit better. So it's kind of a nice way to get people into the ecosystem and have Google like your site and all that stuff. However, a quick converse, I have heard of some people just publishing, they make their site a review site, and they have no informational content unless it's in a like best of or review product post, so that Google knows without a doubt that this site is commercially based. It's not necessarily like an informational blend or anything like that. So I've heard of people doing that, but from my perspective, I like to have a healthy amount of informational content. And then the secondary question is about including Amazon links or display ads on informational posts. So basically, it is up to you, but here's my recommendation. A lot of times I ask people to like default back to what the visitor would want, what can help the visitor the most. And basically, when you think about it that way, you quickly realize that you can put ads, you can put product reviews in informational posts. So let me lay out the scenario. Basically, if someone has a problem, they're Googling some phrase, right? They have a problem and they want to solve it. So if you can help them solve that problem faster or cheaper or easier by recommending a product, you should do it. And I can point you towards some of the content on Niche Site Project where, yes, you can build internal links by taking a report from the Search Console. You can get reports from some of the SEO tools out there, and you could figure it out. You could do it manually. Or if you use a tool like Link Whisper, then you may be able to do it a little bit faster, a little bit easier, and it costs a little money to use the tool. You have to buy it. But that is a valuable recommendation. In the post, in the content where I cover internal linking and Link Whisper, I show you how to do it the manual way. And it's pretty, it's clear how to do it. However, it's also extremely clear that it takes more work. There's more moving pieces involved. So if the whole point is, if you can make it easier, cheaper, or faster for the visitor to solve their problem, it's your duty, right? It's your duty to make that recommendation and let them know. So that is my opinion on that matter. So next, this one is from, actually, I'll leave the name anonymous. I'll just call this person Adam. All right. So here is the email. So, hi, Doug. As discussed on Skype over 2 months ago, I'm going to give you an update on my niche site. At the time we talked, I was hardly getting any organic traffic. Now it seems the long and annoying sandbox period is over and I started to see some results. Now almost every article I write lands on page 1. The traffic is a little over 1,000 visitors per month, and it grows steadily. I've made a few sales as well, and I wanted to thank you for our Skype session where you reviewed my site, and it was very useful to me. Your fan, follower, listener, viewer, and reader. So this guy is doing it all for me. Much appreciated. I'm glad you got some good results. Honestly, I'll be honest with you, Adam. Like when I do the coaching sessions, I'm always thinking, is this really going to help the person out, or is this something that they already know? And apparently I'm smarter than I think. There's a lot of details and just random shit that I've internalized. And when I look at someone's site, most of the time, not always, but most of the time I can make, usually it's like 1 to 3 or 4 recommendations that are game changers. And I've seen this even with like experienced SEOs who have like a certain skill set that is not directly transferable, or sorry, they have a certain skill set, but they are missing maybe some of the affiliate marketing aspects and some of the conversion rate ideas that I have. Or maybe they're really good at affiliate marketing and email marketing and writing, but they have no clue about the technical SEO, some of the on-page stuff. So it's awesome, Adam. Thanks for giving me the update there. And there is indeed a question here. So Adam mentioned that he had a guest post that he published on his site, and he linked that over to the owner of whoever wrote it. And he mentioned that, and Georgie has a scratchy neck apparently. So, all right, girl, you all right? So basically the person who published the guest post wants to publish more content on the site as basically a guest writer, and they want to get like a no-follow link within the text of the article back to their site. And is that going to be a negative thing or positive, or what's the deal? So for me, I'm not 100% sure, because I haven't done this specifically. So I don't have personal experience with it. However, what I can say is, number one, I think you could probably give them a do follow link. If you look at some bigger sites that maybe have a few writers as contributors, they often will have like a bio box. They have a link going back to their site because they're a writer. They write in multiple places, and that is kind of a normal thing. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have someone write on a regular basis for your site. I actually have a couple of my students who I've asked to write for Niche Site Project. Number one, because I know they're smart. I know actually they're professional writers or extremely good writers, and they have things to share. So I knew that they would do a better job writing than me. I'm a little sloppy, as you can imagine. A little sloppy with the writing, and basically it is okay. Like I haven't seen anything like any kind of problems with SEO. So I don't think that's an issue. I would be a little cautious about like the content that they're publishing. Are they putting links to other sites, right? Are they writing for you for free? They're getting a link back to their site, and then maybe they're putting links to other people's sites as well. There's some weird stuff that goes on with content writers sometimes. In fact, I get some pretty terrible pitches from actually constantly. It's just a fucking flood in my inbox of terrible pitches. I get them for, the podcast. I get them for YouTube. I'm getting them for all my sites. I get terrible pitches from actual self-proclaimed marketers to write stuff for Niche Site Project. And I'm like, I have no idea who you are. Your pitch is bad. It's like a Dear Webmaster of Niche Site Project kind of stuff. I mean, it's really horrible. And I'm not sure if this is converting ever. I don't know who is accepting these. So anyway, the point is I would be a little cautious about what they are publishing. It could be totally legit, but I would highly recommend that you give them some pretty strict criteria if they are doing that, and you treat them like a writer that you're paying. Tell them, hey, write this topic. Here's the title. I want it to be this long. Here's the template to use. Really be strict with them, because you're doing them a big favor. Especially, you're starting to rank in Google and all that stuff and get some traffic. So, they could potentially sell the links that they're putting in your post for hundreds of dollars a piece. That's the level that guest posting services are at. And if they just have, a handful of people that they're working with in the same way that they're working with you, they could be making, thousands of dollars per month by hiring writers to write the content. They publish it. They're selling some services. By the way, that is a business idea. A person could make a lot of money selling guest post links where you have relationships out there. There's a huge industry around it. It's just SEO, but if you frame it in the right way, you can sell it for quite a lot. You do have to have either an audience to sell it to, or, you got to work as a freelancer via Upwork or whatever. It's not fun work. I've tried this before. I tried it back when I got laid off in 2015, and working with clients can be a little not fun. I'll say not fun, but certain people have the personality to do it. I do not. I don't have that personality. And working in a consulting capacity, coaching or whatever, that's much better. I'm sharing my expertise and my knowledge, and but working with a client, they're just going to treat you like a commodity. So it's a double-edged sword there. All right, last question here. So this is from Will. Will says, "Hey, I got this email from Amazon about the associate program disclosure statement, and people can probably Google this and find it out there. But essentially, Amazon is providing a little bit more specificity for the operating agreement and disclosing your relationship as an affiliate. So I believe I'm not going to read the whole thing out here, but they do give you a little bit of more of a guide. So one thing that you should say is, as an Amazon associate, I earn from qualifying purchases. Now, the big issue is you need to be putting your disclaimer where the visitors will definitely see it. So that means if you put it in the sidebar, that's not good enough. If you put it in the footer, that is also not good enough. Now, when I got started, it was basically good enough if you had a page on your site that had the disclaimer on there, and if it had a link to it in the footer or somewhere on the site, we called it good enough. Like, as long as you had a little bit of a disclosure on there, you were okay. And I'm pretty sure I probably had some of my first sites, I didn't even have the proper disclosure. To be honest with you, I don't remember. Those sites are gone at this point, but I'm pretty sure I didn't do it quite right. But things were, sort of fast and loose back in the day. They've been tightening up recently. And I know there's probably people out there thinking, Doug, what do you mean it's not good enough if it's in the footer? It's on every page. If it's on the sidebar, they're going to see it, right? Like, it's on every page. That should work, right? The answer is no. Here's why. You need to have the disclaimer before you get to the affiliate link. The problem with the sidebar is on a mobile device, the sidebar is often pushed down to the very bottom of the page. So with that said, you have your disclaimer in the very bottom. Footer is the same issue. So you can go through all the content. The visitor would go through all the content. They'd see multiple affiliate links in which you have no mention of any sort of association or affiliation with Amazon or any other affiliate program, right? So this would generally apply. I mean, from an FTC perspective, you should have your disclaimer before they get to any links. And the FTC is pretty clear. There's actually a link in the email that you can go read, like the FTC guidelines and stuff. But generally, these disclaimers and disclosures should be in like plain English. So if someone doesn't know what an affiliate relationship is, you're spelling it out very clearly. You will earn if you make a qualifying purchase. So Amazon gives us that little bit of text. And I think probably if you have that, I'm not a lawyer, consult your own lawyer, but if you have the text, like as an Amazon associate, I earn from qualifying purchases at the top of every post before you get to any affiliate links, you're probably, giving the right disclosure. If you're doing any sort of social media stuff, I can't speak directly to that, but generally, if you do like a hashtag ad or hashtag commission earned, those are the examples that are in the email. But it just needs to be clear and concise and conspicuous, right? They mentioned it needs to be around the affiliate link. And again, in a lot of ways, the operating agreement is kind of vague. Like, we kind of get the spirit of what needs to be done, which is make sure people know that there's an affiliate relationship here. So some people have asked, for every single link, do I have to put like, this is an Amazon affiliate link? And I don't know. All right. So my answer is I don't know. I think, again, I'm not a lawyer, consult your own. I think that if you have the disclosure at the top, you're probably, honoring the spirit of what is trying to be done here. And that is to let the visitor know that you are, earning a commission if a sale is made. Now I'm going to read a couple of the iTunes reviews that are out there. So a few people have left reviews, which I really appreciate. And by the way, I'm going to start reading out one or two every now and then. So please leave a review over on Apple iTunes or Apple Podcast or whatever it is now. They've changed it again. But one cool thing is I've noticed recently, I wasn't paying much attention, but I noticed recently that this podcast here, this modest podcast that I'm recording, which I don't even think I get a ton of downloads, but I appreciate each and every one of you that, download and listen to the show on the Apple podcast directory. We're typically in the top 200 marketing podcast. Now, in the top 200, I mean, that doesn't sound like very impressive. However, when you realize how many podcasts there are in the world and how many marketing podcasts there are, the fact that we are showing up in the list is absolutely mind-blowing. So I started to, like any person that's probably listening to this, I started looking at the analytics a little too much, but it's pretty cool. And I have a feeling that leaving reviews and just downloading the shows is helpful. So if you have the opportunity, if you have a minute to leave a review, preferably on the Apple Podcast app or whatever the iTunes thing that you use, that is super helpful. So even if you just leave a star rating or whatever, that's fine. If you can write a little review, you could get featured on a show. So I'm going to start going through some of them now, and much appreciated. Again, thanks for the support. Just showing up on like the top 200 list. Pretty epic for me since I was just doing this for a little bit of fun. All right. So first one here is from friend of the show and my actual personal friend, Ron Stefanski. Easy listening, lots to learn. Doug is great at what he does, and these interviews are both entertaining and informative. I'm no novice, but I love learning new things, and I always get something new out of every episode. That's cool, Ron, because I know some of the episodes are a little scattered, but I do often either try to have a point to what I'm saying or at least be moderately entertaining. Maybe not hugely entertaining, but moderate. Next one from Kent Chow. So I've worked with Kent for a while. Oh yeah, and he mentions it here. So Kent says, awesome Amazon affiliate podcast. I've been Doug's follower since 2014. I picked up many great tips like project management, keyword golden ratio, research, content creation, and guest post outreach. This podcast is a plus to consume. This podcast is a plus to consume his content on the go. All right, content on the go. I also enjoy many of the interviews and how the brains are picked, something like that. Can't read out loud. Keep up the great work. So Kent, thanks a lot for that. And one of the more recent ones is from Reader Enterprises or Reader Prizes back in July. And it says, very good podcast. And they have an eggplant emoji. So that's pretty cool. So even the short ones get read. So do leave a review out there. Much appreciated. I'm going to cut it a little bit short for the episode today, but don't forget you can be featured as well. You can leave me a voicemail. Remember, write it down and then read it out. And make sure it's an appropriate length. You don't want to hit the 3-minute mark and then realize that you went on too long. Number 2, you could shoot me an email. Old school email, feedback@Doug.Show. And finally, maybe the premium way, is to leave me a review on Apple iTunes. If you tell me that and then ask a question via email or something, I mean, that's a home run right there. I'll probably send you a few emails and stuff like that. So pretty cool to get the nod as far as the Apple rankings and stuff like that. Just amazing. So thanks everyone for the support. And we're actually closing in on 100 episodes coming up pretty soon. So everyone out there, have a great day, and I will catch you on the next one.